Very interesting story. Another arrest was made in that humongous biker brawl in Ontario that turned deadly where several gang members were shot. They made again another arrest in that case, which was about a month ago, according to authorities. Maine being sued by the Department of Justice. Here's Pam Bondi.
Department of Justice is announcing a civil lawsuit against the Maine Department of Education. The state of Maine is discriminating against women by failing to protect women in women's sports. Pretty basic stuff. This is a violation of Title IX. The Department of Justice will not sit by when women are discriminated against in sports. This is about sports. This is also about these young women's personal safety.
1,000% on that. It's about time. The Maine governor said, Trump, will see you in court. Trump obliged. Here's former Congressman Kurt Weldon claiming two of the 9/11 hijackers were CIA. Here we go.
I have confirmed that two of the hijackers that were on one of the planes in New York were working for the CIA. They were on the CIA payroll. And that was confirmed to me by someone in writing from one of our agencies, and I have that letter.
That's some pretty damning evidence. He was on with Tucker Carlson of that and had many other interesting things to say about the 9/11 deal. He was one of the chief investigators in Congress and pushing it on that. So he has at least a lot of personal experience in it. Here we go with Carl DeMaio and our own Inland Empire's Letitia Castillo on California killing the voter ID bill legislation. Maybe. If we can get Carl to roll up, here we go.
Of our democracy today by requiring voter ID. And they killed the bill. Despite the fact that 68% of Californians in the latest polls support voter ID. 79% of Californians support citizenship verification in order to register to vote. And so I am here today to announce that California citizens will do the job that California politicians refuse to do. We will put voter ID on the ballot in 2026.
Let's hope that comes to fruition. Nothing could be better than to have some honest elections, one man, one vote. Who could be against that? Well, the California legislature. And Newsom getting sued and has a whole can of worms going on. Here's more from Carl DeMaio.
Liberal media won't be telling you. California Governor Gavin Newsom and other prominent Democrat politicians are lawyering up as the Trump administration launches a number of federal civil and criminal investigations into corruption in our state. Coming up, we'll detail what's going on and how we're trying to shine a light on the wasteful spending and the corruption that's been long happening in this state.
1,000% on that. Trump, it's heard, the Trump administration, Department of Justice out here, may be launching 10 investigations on top of that. Solo motorcycle accident on Railroad Canyon in Lake Elsinore doesn't look good for the rider and those around when they have that. We'll give you an update on that scene when we get it. Riverside City Council fired embattled city attorney, but Theodore Norton is gone, some say over very questionable moves. Reoccurring story. Maybe we'll have Jason Hunter on later in the week or next week to fill us in. He's been on top of that situation as he usually has. Of course, the Moreno Valley Clown Show, known as the City Council, fired up. You know it's a good meeting, as they say, when it starts off like this.
Sorry, Council, can we stop for a second? We have an issue here, and as presiding officer, can you please direct sheriffs accordingly?
If we could please keep it respectful, just everybody had their chance to speak during public comment, and we're deliberating right now, please. Thank you.
So we're talking about disappointment. I'm going to be quite frankly honest. I did agree to it, but like a lot of things, because you do it too, you're allowed to change your mind. One of the big issues that I have with how we were doing it before is the way that things were coming about. And I'm sorry, we were essentially wasting staff's time, having them do reports for things that were just ridiculous.
Moreno Valley, ridiculous. Say it ain't so. Councilwoman Shaylinda Bernard, District 4. There's that foundational live guitar music that comes in every Monday through Friday, live at 5 or close to it. Evil Hippie Network, Rumble, X. We might even be on YouTube, who knows? We'll let the guys slide. Man, what a day. Clown shows, Shaylinda Bernard. Well, I'm just going to tell you honestly. So does that mean you're telling us dishonestly some of the time? And it would a little bit of deja vu nostalgia on the Moreno Valley clown show known as the City Council. Had a little interruption there. I don't know if we'll get into the breakdown of that today, but maybe we'll get in depth more into that tomorrow. But I just couldn't resist that one. Rowdy out in the audience, then that whole deal. Again, the mayor in Moreno Valley he just doesn't get it. From 8 years on the council and or mayor, he still has no idea how to run a meeting, and there's much documentary proof. He still doesn't understand the rules and procedures and how to professionally run a meeting, simply, efficiently, and effectively. I will have Susan Shelley on at 5:30 at the bottom of the hour or next hour when we join the Mighty Met KMET, as we usually do. We'll talk about, lots of things. She's talking about how badly taxpayers will get fleeced. Oh, geez. It's something else. The Kurt Weldon deal, and maybe we'll get onto that Friday or Thursday. We'll go backwards a little bit. Kurt Weldon, former congressman, he was the chair of the Armed Services Committee, I believe, in and after 9/11 and when the planes hit the towers. He made some stunning revelations on the Tucker Carlson network. One of them you just heard, that two of the hijackers were CIA. Whoa, that's a pretty, and that's not just coming from somebody, the guy of that. I mean, he's seen the documents in the SCIF, the highly classified, you can't see them anywhere else but there, type of stuff that congressmen, senators, and or the president has access to, and very high levels of military CIA. You have to have a top secret security clearance to view that stuff. And then, like they say, they have a special room where those documents can only be, and all that stuff. So we don't know. You can't say 100% that he's 100% accurate in anything. Nobody hardly is. But heck, if 25%, if 50%, 75% of what he is saying now and exposing on 9/11 is truly stunning. Hopefully we'll get to that too later in the week, but I wanted to run that clip. Just kind of set the seeds for things to come. One of the absolute unusual, if not stunning things, is this whole deal with Gavin Newsom wanting to sue the state of California. I mean, it's almost uncanny. Him and Rob Bonta, our Attorney General. Remember, we had Javier Baccaria before that, and now he's going to try and run for governor. He was on the Biden team, another disaster. You know, that just doesn't, you know, people who used to come from California, or still do, like Stephen Miller, Deputy Chief of Staff for Trump. We used to have some pretty impressive people. You may have liked them, you may have disliked them, may have thought, mediocre. Man, the crews that we've been sending back there under the Biden administration, including our beloved Vice President, Comrade Kamala Harris, it's really almost off the charts. The stupidity, we should say, even after Newsom went back and visited with Trump for an hour and a half, to be pulling this kind of crap, it would be almost unbelievable if it was not coming from anywhere but California. But here we are. If Trump doesn't have any authority to do this, I don't see where Newsom's going to make the case for it. But here we go. Maybe. Maybe.
Threaten California's economy, including its agricultural industry. Eyewitness News reporter Rob Hayes is here with more on the new lawsuit. Rob.
Yeah, if most economists can't persuade Donald Trump to end his global trade war, the state of California is hoping a judge can. Governor Gavin Newsom and Attorney General Rob Bonta this morning rolled out details of a lawsuit they filed against the president, saying he can't legally issue unilateral tariffs.
The president is exercising authority that he doesn't have. The president can't do unlawful things. It's really that simple. And he thinks he's above the law. He's not. He thinks he can violate the Constitution and the law, and he can't.
Newsom and Bonta railing on Trump's broad sweeping tariffs issued by using the International Economic Emergency Powers Act, saying it has caused irreparable harm to California, peeling billions of dollars from its economy through rising prices and threatening to cause even more in the upcoming months. Bonta's federal lawsuit argues the Constitution does not give Trump the authority to singularly impose tariffs. Bonta said the suit invokes the very same Supreme Court doctrine that was used to strike down President Joe Biden's student loan forgiveness program and President Barack Obama's Clean Power Plan.
If they are consistent, then this lawsuit is a lock. How in the hell are we sitting by and allowing this to happen?
Because, Newsy, we're tired of getting hosed by the Chinese communists front and center on trade. So a lot of the cheap crap you buy from China is going to go, even if it goes up, who cares? Well, you're going to care a little bit. But if energy prices go down, jobs return, manufacturing cranks up, and your earnings actually buy you more. With the dollar you have tomorrow than today, you will be better off. Everyone overall, we'll be better off. And if we don't start now, when? You know, kick the can down the road, don't deal with it today because it's going to affect me in the next year. But if we're going to come out better in 3, 5, and 10 years by doing this, and Trump said we're going to have to endure a little bit of pain. You know, there, so a few items may go up that we can work around. You can't work around energy, groceries, transportation. That's what the news doesn't understand. Or he's grandstanding or thinking he's going to pull the wool over somebody's eyes. How this guy double talks everything is a 101 on how you get, you know, how politicians are telling you things dishonestly. And again, I kind of chuckle about Shay Linda saying, I'm just going to be honest here. What time were you not honest? Kind of like the old adage, when did you stop beating your wife? But here we go on this one.
Gavin Newsom says the state short on funds for its Medicaid program known as Medi-Cal. The state expanded the program to cover undocumented immigrants. The governor asked lawmakers to approve another $2.8 billion in loans on top of a $3.4 billion loan issued last week. So California now making up a $6.2 billion shortfall in Medi-Cal funds. The money meant to keep the program properly funded through June.
So, let's see what he says today.
Today, I announced a lawsuit on behalf of the state of California suing the Trump administration. California is the largest manufacturing state in our union, one of the largest trading partners around the globe. No state will be impacted more than the state of California as it relates.
If we're the largest, as he said, manufacturer in the United States, mind you, the tariffs do not apply to goods manufactured in the United States of America, then we should be in the best position, even if the worst fears, the fear-mongering that's been going on over the whole trade thing, even your worst fears, they should be mitigated the best in California. Why are you up in such a lather? We went through the fallacy of this 9,000 times to Sunday. Here's Gulag Gavin Newsom a couple years ago. We go.
There's no jurisdiction anywhere in the world that has set now more ambition, backed up by not just policy and a regulatory framework, but by a record-breaking $54 billion we put up in this year's budget to fast track our transition to low carbon green growth. So, and with all due respect to those conservative governors out there, Greg Abbott and others, they're as dumb as they want to be, and they're just doubling down on stupid, and we will not follow their path. We're going in a completely different direction.
Well, of course he's going in a completely different direction. We've known that. Highest gas prices and electricity prices, natural gas prices, grocery prices, housing prices, prices on top of prices. That's what your policies have brought us, Newsom. Yeah, we're going in a different direction. Notice, because he's going to say, well, I wasn't lying. I didn't say which direction that was going. But now when the California policies are going all haywire, and voters are even starting to get teed off about all this stuff, now we're going to try to blame it on Trump. He's going to try to blame those policies that he and the kook California legislature put in place on good old Donald J. Well, you have to laugh because if you didn't, you'd cry. Like his latest appeal to Canadians over the big mean Donald Trump goo.
The Golden State and Canada have always shared so much in common. Sure, you know who's trying to stir things up back in D.C., but don't let that ruin your beach plans. California, it's the ultimate playground. From our iconic beaches and national parks to world-class wine, food, and outdoor adventure, there's something here for everyone. Last year, nearly 2 million Canadians visited California because here...
I'm sure you saw that. I'm sure they're coming down for the tranny show. Oh, that's what we want to attract. On top of that plump jack wine, I want to find out if that video was a state of California one. If he's promoting his own business. Now, if he was doing it on his campaign or one of his campaign deals or something. But if that's on a state of California post or origination, and him promoting Plump Jack Wine, which he basically owns or is a major entity of, that could be a problem. Even for the news. But I find that one funny as hell. Well, let's roll it up on that. Oh yeah, that's going to bring everybody in. That's your selling point? Rainbow stickers covering up the nipples on that lady? That's what you're going to put out there? That's who you think you're going to attract people to come to California with? Holy smokes. Have we sunk that low? It's possible. Gavin Newsom putting out, telling Canadians to come down and see this. Oh, you're just spend thousands of dollars in California so you can look at that. Man, oh man. That's incredible. Sometimes you can say you've seen everything. That may take the cake. Back with him on with the Mar about a week ago.
I'm serious about this. Michelle Obama might be a guy, but as I was saying, there's something thrilling about paying greased up homeless people to fight each other in your living room when you're totally blasted on ketamine. Funny story, Bill. I was in my house watching what I thought was the bum fight of the century, and then it dawned on me. I'm a relaxed, reasonable, ethical guy who should run for president. At the very least, I knew I needed to start a podcast.
That's from Maverick Darby, and in case you didn't get the joke, that was a parody or an AI generated something or other off of that. But I thought it was, yeah, I got a big chuckle out of it. And there's probably more truth than actually what he did say on Bill Maher. Michelle Obama is actually maybe a man. Well, I'm high on ketamine. This is pretty good. Oh, I got to give the Maverick Darby on X. It's pretty good credit for putting that one together. That was classic. Like I said, that's probably more true of where Gavin Newsom is at than what he really says on TV. Remember this whole trucker shortage? We don't have enough truckers. Blah, 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 da, da, da. I mean, I didn't know this, but they, under the Biden regime, under the 30 million or 20 million or however many, they were granting visas for truckers from other countries to come in and giving them commercial driver's license. This is on Real America's Voice. Here we go.
That they allow folks that are not citizens of this country to come in and compete with American citizens as truck drivers in the United States of America?
Steve, I get that same response from everyone I talk to. The public is vastly unaware that our highways are completely overrun right now with truck drivers operating on foreign commercial driver's licenses and what are now called non-domiciled CDLs, where our state DMVs are now issuing U.S. commercial driver's licenses to non-citizens. And our American truck drivers are now being replaced because they can't compete with this new workforce.
Well, American truck drivers are being replaced because we have imported people from other countries, given them commercial CDLs, as they're known, commercial driver's licenses, so you can drive a big rig. And voila, what has it done? Cut the wages down. That's what the whole illegal immigration thing is about, is bigger supply of labor, less we have to pay the workers. Economics 101. Big supply, price gets cheaper. That goes for toilet paper, goes for gasoline, goes for eggs, killing 100 million chickens and then saying, oh, we got a crisis. It goes for your labor or the goods and services you're selling. Stunning. Another thing they revealed, Teamsters, unionized truckers are only 5% of the workforce. This is, you guys, this is where your jobs are going. You know, we basically eliminated the independent trucker in California. I don't know countless people who made a darn good living by owning and operating their own truck. That's pretty much, that's 98.7% a thing of the past in California. I think it was like close to, in its heyday, like 50% of all the trucks on the road were owner operated. You could go buy a truck and make a decent living, make a great living, raise a family, you know, home, 2 cars, 2 kids, send them to college, all that, just by owning and operating your own truck. And then some people got them into trucking companies and things like that. But that has been destroyed. Because now they can do it cheaper. Or they can, you know, big company can go buy 100 rigs, get a better price, and then we'll just hire a bunch of illegals or legalized foreign nationals to drive the trucks. It's quasi-criminal. I really wish it wasn't true. But it is.
Slow down. You're telling me a foreign driver can get a commercial driver's license and actually drive freight in big rigs around the country and does not have to know how to speak English?
That's correct, sir. They waived that in 2016. They stopped enforcing it, and we're seeing the results of this. There was a horrific crash in Austin, Texas a few weeks.
The other big revelation, as you just saw, under Barack Hussein Obama, under his watch, they waived the privilege, or they waived the requirement that you had to learn English to drive an 80,000-pound big rig truck and trailer in the United States. If that doesn't shake up your boots, I don't know what will. Absolutely 100%. Almost unbelievable, except it's true. Maybe it'll play.
Gord, what is you've written a bunch of articles, great pieces on the Blaze and other places. It's kind of shocking when I first read them. Lay out, what is this problem we have in the United States? I thought all truckers in the U.S. were United States citizens, had driver's license. If you were driving big rigs, need additional licenses, you got licensed. But I thought all the truckers were all American citizens. Is that not correct?
You would think, sir, but unfortunately, forces have been at work to try and drive down the American truckers' wages. And there's been some strange policy decisions on the part of both the Obama administration and the Biden administration during COVID, which have resulted in way more CDLs being issued. And my colleague Shannon can explain what's going on.
So there it is. I see we got a break between 17 and 20 with Trump. Then we lost it all, or most of it. In the next 4 years. Now we're gaining it back.
I believe that we need a task force to go investigate this across the United States to better understand that and to report that and to have a requirement where that's in the crash reports. But what we do know is that the number of fatal truck crashes and the number of injuries has risen quite a bit over the last several years. I think it's up 79% in the last 10 years up until 2022. And so we actually did a graph, and we've got a chart on our website at americantruckers.com /crash data, where you can see that that we had a consistent number of injuries and fatalities in the trucking industry up until that 2016 period that Gord had described, when they issued the memorandum ordering officers to no longer put a truck out of service for failing to meet the English proficiency requirement. And after that point, the number of fatalities starts climbing and continues to climb year after year after year, and then it takes another significant step up in 2021 when the non-domicile commercial driver's licenses started to be issued. So we are making the argument that we believe that the only major policy changes that we've seen that could have led to more crashes was the removal of the English language proficiency and was the issuance of these non-domicile commercial driver's licenses, because in the last 10 years, during that time, we've also rolled out a tighter regulations on hours of service regulations for our truck drivers. We now have mandated e-log systems that have to be in their trucks.
So after they dropped the English requirement to drive a truck in the United States, accidents went up through the roof. It took a rocket science to figure that out? No. Did it take, let's say, Elon Musk and Doge? No. It took these guys to come up with it. Who would have not figured that was going to happen? Some of the things that we're uncovering are almost beyond the pale. But sadly, we're living them. I don't know how much more of this we can actually take. But there's going to be more accidents and deaths. This is another thing we have to clean up. If we don't clean this up, it's going to be a disaster. It's going to just keep getting worse. And this is the point Trump is making. This is the stuff Newsom is trying to defend. And it's, again, like you said, it's quasi-criminal that we're doing this. And we're doing it to ourselves. And that's one let's say one of the most disturbing parts of this. And like I say, I follow this stuff probably as close or as much as anybody. Heck, I didn't know that we did. For 9 years, we've been letting people in the country to drive trucks without a California driver's license. Almost beyond the pale, but we're living it. What the heck that is? Oh, that's this over here. See if we can eliminate some of these electronics will drive you absolutely nutserini. There. Nope, that ain't it. See if we can, I don't know where I'm coming up with the feedback. Oh, I think I got it. I hate that. When you get to those points of, and they want to try to run these goofy ads of that Bukele, Nayib Bukele, the El Presidente of El Salvador. This is him talking to our great Donald J. Trump about this whole enchilada and the whole row about this, us shipping people in our country illegally, committing crimes and everything else to El Salvador. There's Bukele. Maybe. Here we go.
That was what I was calling it, right? Murder capital of the world into the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. And, you know, if sometimes they say that we imprisoned thousands, I like to say that we actually liberated millions. So, like,
That's very good. Who gave him that line? Do you think I can use that?
yes. And in fact, Mr. President, you have 350 million people to liberate. But to liberate 350 million people, you have to imprison some. That's the way it works, right? You cannot just, free the criminals and think crime is going to go down magically. You have to imprison them so you can liberate 350 million Americans.
What a concept. Putting criminals in jail. I don't know where this guy came from, per se. Man, he's got that point right. That's why he's offering to help the United States and Trump. El Salvador was an asshole. Crime, cartels running it, chaos in the streets. He's cleaned it up like 98% by getting tough on crime.
The world, that was the journalists call it, right? Murder capital of the world, to the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. And, if sometimes they say that we imprisoned thousands. I like to say that we actually liberated millions. So, like,
it's very good.
And people were criticizing him. Took the murder capital of the world to the safest city in the Western Hemisphere. And people are upset and having hissy fits and Lord knows what. Good thing is that we're working on turning this stuff around. Not tolerating stupid. And then there's that hokey senator, Chris Van Hollen. I did. And I follow this stuff pretty good. Never heard of him. Breaking news, the vice president of El Salvador just denied Democrat Senator Chris Van Hollen as an in-person visit with gang member Kilmar Garcia. He should have called first, as the Mimi said. That's on Patriots for Trump. Posted by David Schuler, or whatever it is, his name is. The vice president of El Salvador, get it out, denied Democrat Senator Chris Van Hollen an in-person visit with gang member Kilmar Garcia. I guess sometimes it just doesn't get any better than that. Oh, he was wailing about, they might be torturing him. On top of that, there's been reports out, one of the things when he was in this country, he had an order to stay out, or had an order or a conviction or something, where he was beating the crap out of his wife. You have the chance to come back in or apply legally. Why don't you take advantage of it? Instead of trying to tell everybody or this or crocodile tears, why don't you just follow the rules? It's innately simple to do. And for the most part, your life will go much smoother if you do that. Some people can't help themselves and they wind up down in an El Salvador prison with BRAWL, and I don't know whose vice president is, But he deserves a award for telling the senator who flew down there with the
30 seconds, 30 seconds.
oh, well, I want an in-person visit, and they said no. It's how you clean up the world's most dangerous city to the most safest city in the Western Hemisphere, as BRAWL, the El Salvadorian president, said. We'll be back, hopefully with Susan Shelley, of that, and much, much more. We'll get into maybe we'll expand on that.
5 seconds. Here we go.
And much, much more.
IE Newswire Daily is on the air.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
There's that funky slide guitar music that comes in every Monday through Friday live at 5:30 on the Mighty Met 1490 AM, broadcasting all over the Inland Empire and the aforementioned AM band. Join your vast video audience in the UFP Network, Rumble, X, even YouTube, I think, is cooking. Man, what a day. BIKER, there was another arrest in that big BIKER brawl in Ontario, California, where one guy was shot 97 times or something and bled out. They got one guy off the deal of a chase that went from here to Bakersfield, I think, up in somewhere in the Central California area. And they made another arrest today in that case. So kudos for the cops for getting law enforcement, keeping us safe, like BRAWL, the El Salvadorian president, and his vice president. First, BRAWL was with Trump, saying, you know, you got to put people in prison. You know, there's bad people out there. You're not rehabilitating everybody. Some people just cannot function in a normal society. That's why, whether they're vagrants, violent criminals, on and on and on, mentally incapacitated, burnt their brains out on drugs, which goes back to the vagrant deal, psycho serial killers, or anything else. It's a dangerous world. And that's why we've had prisons and jails and law enforcement to take care of those types, again, that cannot live civilly amongst other fellow human beings. You just, there's just some facts of nature that you cannot get around. It's almost, sometimes how we've got away from that concept has been stunningly stupid in a lot of the things we've done. But maybe we'll straighten it out. Maybe we'll finally get the jails open that we have or had, never occupied, in Riverside County. We may be in for some good surprises on that. But who knows? It's really, really, really one of the great, let's say great Greek tragedies, if you want to say, how we've got to the point where we just abandon common sense at every turn. I don't know. At some point, maybe, and I think we're at the point where we may. Ooh, there goes my. Wonder what the hell happened there. What did it? These are nice days when this thing has been going like crazy like this. Let me see if I can hit one. Well, that stopped that. I don't know why my lovely cameras are not reading on the deal, but we shall see if we can fix that little situation going on. See if we can get Susan Shelley on the line. Looks like the phones are going nuts. On that, do I finally have you, Susan?
Yes, hello.
On the top of that, my cameras are starting to go all sorts of crazy and everything else, but we'll soldier on that. I want to deal with this El Salvadorian thing of the President BRAWL, of that in Trump's meeting. And it just, I don't know if I just saw it come across my feed anyway, of that. This senator, and I don't know which state he's from, but Senator Chris Van Hollen went down to El Salvador to rescue or meet with this Kilmar Garcia and stuff. And the El Salvadorian vice president said, you should have called first. You ain't meeting with him. This is, and when BRAWL was having his meeting with Trump and going through it, he said, we took the world's most dangerous city, murder capital of the world, and turned it into the safest city in the Western Hemisphere by imprisoning people. You know, there are bad people out there that you got to incarcerate them. They just can't function in civil society, Susan.
Well, you're exactly right, and it certainly appears that this guy is one of them. There's a record that he was identified and arrested as a gang member. There's a record that he was a domestic violence perpetrator. There's a record, and that's all terrible. And I don't have any sympathy for him. And he is an El Salvadoran citizen, and so that's the right place for him to be. The catch in the situation is that the immigration court, and this was some years ago, I don't know exactly when, the immigration court that issued the removal order for him in the United States said that because his life could be endangered by a rival gang at the time, he should not be deported to El Salvador, so any country except El Salvador. And when he was picked up in this latest round, they either didn't know about that, or they ignored it, or something went wrong. That's where the mistake was, and they sent him to El Salvador. Now, it's entirely possible that they could have gone to a judge and said, this particular condition no longer applies because this particular gang no longer exists in El Salvador. And so there is no danger to his life. Let's lift that condition. But that would have been the legal process. So where the Trump administration is tangled up is the Democrats are messaging as if ICE is just scooping people up who are not guilty of anything and throwing them in this death trap of a prison in another country. That's how people are perceiving this story. And the White House is working very hard. I'm seeing the press releases on Twitter, and the press secretary brought one of the victims' mothers to the press room today to talk to the press about how none of these Democrats cared when her daughter was raped and murdered. So they're working very hard to try to get control of the message, but it is getting away from them. People are perceiving it as mass deportation without process, which it isn't.
It goes to the vagrant issue and everything else. There's going to be a certain percentage of the population that cannot function in a civilized society. You have to have some place where you know where they're at. They can't get away. They can't mingle, whether they're criminals or vagrants or burnt their brains out on drugs, which could relate back to any of these things or a combination of that. But, you know, and it's sad to say of that, but that's just the way it is. That's what BRAWL said to that. We got to have, you know, in order to clean this up, we had to put a lot of people in prison because the drugs, the gangs, and the cartels and everything else were running the city. Everybody was scared to death. They couldn't function. It was paralyzing society of that. He went in there, and used some strong arm tactics, but sometimes you have to do that in order to accomplish the greater good, Susan.
Well, absolutely. And this is a situation where the United States is tangled up in it because President Trump made a contract with El Salvador to take people who he was deporting from the country because he declared these gangs to be terrorist organizations. He declared the cartels, MS-13, Tren de Aragua from Venezuela, he declared them to be foreign terrorist organizations, which puts them in a different category than just immigration law. So the deportation process is different. And this is a really layered and legally complicated situation. So it's not as simple as, well, they should just go down there and make an arrangement to send him to Gitmo or something like that. This is really complicated. And then it's going back and forth between the district court, the appellate court, the Supreme Court, back again on these different fragments of the issues. Can there be a stay? I don't even know if they've gotten to the merits of a case yet, but this is complicated. On the politics of it, the Democrats are trying to make hay. I think it's interesting that President Trump has sort of maneuvered them into a situation where they're defending murderers, and that's not great. That's not a great place to be if you're a politician. You're out there speaking out against victims and in favor of murderers. That the long-term politics of this are going to work in President Trump's favor, but it's going to be 3 days of a difficult story, I think.
We had to get to the point, and this was another one with Trump, when he had all the governors in there, and the Maine governor popped off. He said, "Yeah, are you going to comply with all this and not have boys beat up in girls' sports and things like that?" And she said, "No, we're going to continue to do what you want. See you in court." Well, Pam Bondi, the U.S. Attorney General under Trump, today obliged Miss Governor from Maine and sued Maine, withholding, or I guess the end game is to withhold the federal funds going to Maine because they will not do the common sense edict. Again, how did we lose our sanity in this stuff? I don't know, Susan.
That's a really good question. I think part of it happened because Wall Street got into this ESG scoring thing, where the large mutual funds, the large investment companies, would downgrade a stock or exclude it from certain indexes based on not having a perfect score with the Human Rights Campaign. And the Human Rights Campaign has this goofball agenda of stuff for the LGBTQ plus, whatever all the letters are, groups. And some of it is offensive to consumers in America, but that didn't matter because the stock would get hit if they didn't have a perfect score on this stuff. And that's when you started seeing, the trans flag and all of the rainbow flag and everything in all the corporate logos. This was part of getting a perfect score from the Human Rights Campaign. And once it sort of got into the bloodstream of commerce, it was like there was no way out until that thing happened with Bud Light, which was so over the top that the brand was destroyed by it, or just about destroyed, certainly damaged. And I think that woke people up. And now with President Trump taking office and saying he's had enough of the whole woke thing, and he's not going to have any DEI, and he's not going to have any CRT, and he's not going to have any of this. He has created a safe space for corporate America to drop all this stuff that I don't think they ever really wanted to do in the first place, but they felt that it was a disservice to their shareholders if they got a bad score from the Human Rights Campaign and got excluded from these different indexes and stock funds. It's very strange. It's going to go down in history as a period of just the madness of crowds.
I think you're onto something because we had the Tucker Carlson interview of the Budweiser executive. Before the Dylan Mulvaney thing, he had a deal set up with Black Rifle Coffee because, he said our demographics are the same. Drinkers of Bud Light and Black Rifle Coffee in the morning, Bud Light when they come home after work or whatever. We'll all make a bunch of money. And corporate killed it because of what you're talking about. Well, and this was in 21 or just before the 22 deal with Dylan Mulvaney. And he's thinking, you guys are insane. And then they justify, and he says, oh, our Bud Light customer was boys dressing up as girls, and you thought that you green lighted that. Again, how did we get to I don't know. I just can't wrap my head around how we've been in this insanity click for whatever it's been, 5, 2, 3, 10 years. It's maddening, Susan.
It is, and somebody had to stand up to it, and the American people stood up to it, and then the president stood up to it. He was elected by these angry people, and I think it was a big part. People just saying no more of this, telling us we're immoral because we won't put pronouns in our bio. I was starting to see that from reporters who would call and they would want to do an interview about taxes or whatever. This was during the election campaign in October and November. They would ask me at the end of the interview, they would say, spell your name and what are your pronouns? So I would spell my name and I would say, I don't do pronouns. This is a quote for an interview about taxes, and it doesn't matter what my pronouns are.
Yeah.
Take your best guess, and if I'm offended, I'm offended, okay? It doesn't matter.
But
I just don't do that. I don't do pronouns, but that's how crazy it got.
Yeah. Your voice, even if they didn't have a picture of your voice, your name's Susan Shelley, it's going to take a big leap to come up. How do you, again, I don't know. How we're even to this point of doing that where the U.S. Attorney General has to sue. And that Maine governor was arrogant and defiant. Well, we'll see you in court. And I love Trump's response when he did that, a couple weeks ago or something. Good. He says, I look forward to it because he didn't say it like this, but he said, we're going to kick your ass in court when we do it. And so she got her wish.
Well, this is a really important issue because kids in school compete in sports. This is not a thing that they do. They wake up one morning and they do it for an hour and they're done. This is years and years of practice and sacrifice and parents getting up at dawn and driving their kids for whatever it is, whatever kind of sports practice it is. They put a lot of time and effort into it. Why? Because there are scholarships and there are awards, and this makes a difference in the job market later. So this is a rite of passage in life to do these sports things, to excel, to win, to have the recognition. So when you say to girls' sports, sorry, but you have to let people with male biology compete against these girls, even though the bones are bigger, the muscles are longer, taller, stronger, everything like that. And these girls are going to be aced out of these positions by males in their sport who say they're female or think they're female, but they're male biology. That is infringing on somebody else's rights. And that's why it has to be stopped. I think there was one transgender woman who tried ice skating, and it was not successful because ice skating favors the physiology of the female form. And to have a male competing against biological women in ice skating was a Monty Python sketch. And so it didn't go well, and that was the last of that. But when you put biological males who are trans women in basketball, girls basketball or women's basketball, or you put them in golf, or you put them in something where physical strength, speed, muscles, bones matter, it's just not fair to the women, and it's not fair to the girls. And it's taking away something that federal law guarantees them. Under Title IX, they have the right to have these sex-segregated sports, so they have a safe space to compete fairly. And to take that away because of ideology or politics is just wrong. And I think it violates federal law at every level and should never have been allowed in the first place.
Back in a month or two ago when Trump came out over the LA fires and everything, and he looked at Mayor Karen Bass and said, why can't you get these people's permits, let them clean up their properties, yada, yada, yada. Along with everything, LA just seems to be one complete disastrous dumpster fire. But I heard recently in the last week they've only issued 4 building permits for the people in, that have had their homes and almost their lives destroyed. The stuff that goes on, the taxes, the vagrant issue, they raise this, more taxes, more fees, more money in that, less fires, so your homes burn down and the problems get worse. And they just keep jacking up the money, and that they must think the average working American LA citizen or whatever just bleeds money because your column is LA City Hall continues to punish residents with higher fees. Susan Shelley.
Oh, this is going to be bad. The trash fees in the city of Los Angeles are going to go up. Now, they don't go up automatically. There is a Proposition 218 process where people have the opportunity to cast a protest vote. And if a majority of property owners cast a protest vote, the trash hike cannot go through. It would have to be canceled. However, I think there's 700,000 customers, so you would need 350,000 protest votes. That's a lot of organization to get that many people to fill out the card and send it back. Nonetheless, there is a process. It takes more than 45 days, and there will be a hearing, and people will have a little more time to look at this. But what's happening is the cost of providing trash collection has gone up dramatically because of idiotic state laws that require separate organic composting of organic waste, of food waste, and separate paper and separate plastic. And all of these things are causing the cost of trash processing to go up and up and up. Now, it used to be the case that this was part of your city services that was covered by your regular taxes. And then at some point, they started charging a little extra. And then they charged a little more extra. They said, well, all the money's going to go to the police department. I don't think it did, but it was supposed to. And now they're saying, well, you see, the general fund has been subsidizing homeowners all this time, and it has to stop. So now what they're saying is none of your actual taxes are going for this city service. You have to be paying for it totally separately. But, of course, you don't have the option to pick the provider that you would like to have, or to have competition in the market, not even if you're a commercial customer. That's all been turned into a monopoly franchise also. So you're stuck, you're absolutely captive. They can charge you whatever they say it costs them. They can control how much it costs by how much they choose to do. And the bottom line is the rates are going to jump 54%, and by 2029 they will have doubled. So this is really expensive, and that's on top of, it's all on the same bill in the city of Los Angeles. Your water, your power, and your trash and sewer service are all on the same bill. And people are seeing bills that are 4 digits, easily, $1,000, $1,500, for regular, ordinary, suburban tract houses. It's insane. The summertime bills are going to be crazy. And now they're adding $100 to every bill for more trash services. And why? This stupid law, SB 1383 from 2016, signed by Jerry Brown, saying we have to have organic composting. We have to divert 75% of the food waste away from landfills. So it has to be composted separately. And why? Because it's bad for the climate, because you have this short-lived methane gas emission from a landfill, and that's a climate supposed gas, and therefore we have to pay all this money to have this marginal decrease in greenhouse gases, as if that makes any difference at all to the global climate, which it doesn't. It just raises the cost of living and burdens people who already are struggling.
This is going on, I think Riverside, or one of the cities I heard down there, is proposing a 54% increase in the trash pickup fee, and it's been going on. People are calling, and they did yesterday at the County Board of Supervisors saying, hey, what's going on with this trash thing going up of that? Yeah, we made another mess out of another situation that was working perfectly fine before the government.
Exactly.
Yeah, the government guerrillas got in there and turned everything out. We got about a minute left. Tell them why they should join HJTA Go.
The Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association is the best organization in California working for you, the California taxpayer, in the courts, in the legislature, on the ballot, on the radio, everywhere. We're working for you, and you can be a member of this great organization. For just $15 a year, you'll get our newspaper, Taxing Times. You'll get our updates on what's going on in the legislature and when it's time to pick up the phone and call and yell at them. It's useful to know because they do listen. When people find out what they're doing, it's like, well, we didn't know anybody knew we were doing this, so it is useful. Join the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association and be a member. Strengthen the voice of taxpayers in California. Join us at hjta.org.
Thanks for being on, Susan. We'll do it again next week.
Thank you, Roy.
You got Susan Shelley, again, Vice President of Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, columnist extraordinaire for the Southern California News Group. It's going to be absolutely imperative that we don't do any of this more stupid nonsense that we have come up with. Because if we allow them to keep doing this, they will just keep sticking it to us and sticking it to us and sticking it to us. You know, like the old adage, this has been, it's death by 1,000 cuts. And the sad part of it is if they kill us off the taxpayer, as you they're know, done.
I've been talking about standing up for our country, doing something. These big box stores stayed open while the little guys closed. Will our voices be heard? Does voting with our dollars work? PatriotSwitch.com gives patriots the power to walk away from the big box stores forever. Stop supporting the enemies of freedom now. That's why PatriotSwitch.com was created, for those who support America. PatriotSwitch.com. Is your car doing the hucklebuck and afraid you will be stuck? Well, head on down to Toyota of San Bernardino, Nissan of San Bernardino, Subaru of San Bernardino, in the San Bernardino Auto Mall, and catch a Camry, look ravishing in a Rogue, or be styling in a Subaru. Don't forget I-10 Toyota in Indio for those of you in the lower desert. You deserve to be the happiest human on the planet. So head on down to one of these 4 great dealerships for the car of your dreams. Spread the word. IE Newswire is now on every Monday through Friday, live at 5 p.m. on Rumble and KMET 1490 AM, 5:30 to 6 p.m. Join all the cool kids who want an eclectic look at the news without all the filters of the evil scoundrels of social media and the despicable dorks of the dominant press. Don't bumble and stumble. Subscribe to IE Newswire on Rumble and roll with the best hillbilly hoedown around.
That's it. If you want to buy American, go to PatriotSwitch.com. If you need a new Subaru or Toyota, go to one of Cliff Cummings' great dealerships at the San Bernardino Auto Mall at the 10 and 215 freeways. It's been a fun day, especially since I got in here. One of those everything that could go wrong did go wrong, but we got her in there. Safe to say, tomorrow hopefully will be a brighter day. Hello for today, as we usually say at this time. Mandatory, you're back here 23 hours live. You're the best darn show in the whole wide world. Until then, see ya.
All right. I will talk to you tomorrow.
You got it.